Then there arose a great uproar and confusion, and Takumi no Kami was arrested and disarmed and confined in one of the apartments of the palace under the care of the censors. A council was held, and the prisoner was given over to the safeguard of a daimyo called Tamura Ukyo no Daibu, who kept him in close custody in his own house, to the great grief of his wife and of his retainers. And when the deliberations of the council were completed, it was decided that as he had committed an outrage and attacked another man within the precincts of the palace, he must perform harakiri, that is, commit suicide by disemboweling. His goods must be confiscated and his family ruined. Such was the law. So Takumi no Kami performed harakiri when his castle of Akko was confiscated, and his retainers having become Rohnins, some of them took service with other daimyo and others became merchants. Now, amongst these retainers was his principal counselor, a man called Oishi Kuranosuke, who, with 46 other faithful dependents, formed a league to avenge the master's death by killing Kotsuke no Suke. This Oishi Kuranosuke was absent at the castle of Akko at the time of the affray, which, had he been with his prince, would never have occurred, for being a wise man, he would not have failed to propitiate Kotsuke no Suke by sending him suitable presents, while the counselor who was in attendance on the prince at Edo was dullard, who neglected this precaution, and so caused the death of his master and ruin of the house. So Oishi Kuranosuke and his 46 companions began to lay the plans of vengeance against Kotsuke no Suke. But the latter was so well guarded by a body of men lent to him by a daimyo called Uesugi-sama, whose daughter he had married, that they saw that the only way of attaining their end would be to throw the enemy off his guard. With this object, they separated and disguised themselves, some as carpenters or craftsmen, others as merchants. And their chief Kuranosuke went to Kyoto and built a house in the quarter called Yamashina, where he took the frequenting houses of the worst repute, and gave himself up to drunkenness and debauchery, as if nothing were further from his mind than revenge. Kotsuke no Suke, in the meanwhile, suspecting that Takumi no Kami's former retainers would be scheming against his life, secretly sent spies to Kyoto, and caused a faithful account to be kept of all that Kuranosuke did. The latter, however, determined thoroughly to debut the enemy into false security, went on leading a dissolute life with harlots and wine-bibbers. One day, as he was returning home drunk from some law hunt, he fell down in the street and went to sleep. And all the passers-by laughed in scorn. It happened that a Satsuma man saw this and said, "Is not this Oishi Kuranosuke, who was a counselor of Asano Takumi no Kami, and who, not having the heart to avenge his lord, gives himself up to women and wine? See how he lies drunk in the public street. Faithful beast, foul and craven, unworthy the name of a samurai." And he trod on Kuranosuke's face as he slept, and spat upon him. But when Kotsuke no Suke's spies reported all this at Edo, he was greatly relieved at the news, and felt secure from danger. One day, Kuranosuke's wife, who was bitterly grieved to see her husband lead this abandoned life, went to him and said, "My lord, you told me at first that your debauchery was but a trick to make your enemy relax in watchfulness. But indeed, this has gone too far. I prayed and besought you to put some restraint upon yourself. Trouble me not replied Kuranosuke, for I'll not listen to your whining. Since my way of life is displeasing to you, I will divorce you, and you may go about your business, and I'll buy some pretty young girl from one of the public houses and marry her for my pleasure. I'm sick of the sight of an old woman like you about the house, so get you gone, the sooner the better." So saying, he flew into a violent rage, and his wife, terror-stricken, pleaded piteously for mercy. "Oh, my lord, unsay those terrible words. I have been your faithful wife for 20 years, and have borne your 3 children. In sickness and sorrow, I have been with you. You cannot be so cruel as to turn me out of doors now. Have pity, have pity." Says this endless wailing, "My mind is made up, and you must go. And as the children are in my way also, you're welcome to take them with you." When she heard her husband speak thus, in her grief she sought her eldest son, Oishi, and begged him to plead for her, and prayed that she must be pardoned. But nothing would turn Kuranosuke from his purpose. So his wife was sent away with the 2 younger children, and went back to her native place. But Oishi remained with his father. The spies communicated all this without fail to Kotsukenosuke, and he, when he heard now Kuranosuke having turned his wife and children out of the doors, and bought a concubine, was groveling in a life of drunkenness and lust, began to think that he had no longer anything to fear from the retainers of Takumi no Kami, who must be cowards without the courage to avenge their lord. So by degrees he began to keep a less strict watch, and sent back Haho the guard, which had been lent to him by his father-in-law Uesugi-sama. Little did he think how he was falling into the trap laid for him by Kuranosuke, who, in his zeal to slay his lord's enemy, thought nothing to divorcing his wife and sending away his children. Admirable and faithful man!